Raymond Oliver Dreher Jr., born February 14, 1967, known as Rod Dreher, is an American writer and editor. He is a senior editor and blogger at the American Conservative and author of several books, including How Dante Can Save Your Life, The Benedict Option, and Live Not by Lies. He has written about religion, politics, film, and culture in National Review and National Review Online, The Weekly Standard, The Wall Street Journal, Touchstone, Men's Health, The Los Angeles Times, and other publications. He was a film reviewer for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel and chief film critic for the New York Post. His commentaries have been broadcast on National Public Radio's All Things Considered, and he has appeared on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Core TV, and other television networks. The Benedict Option has been described as the most discussed and most important religious book of the decade. Dreher has been involved in multiple controversies regarding his views on race. Dreher was born on February 14, 1967, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was named after his father, Ray Oliver Dreher. He was raised in the small town of St. Francisville. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism from Louisiana State University in 1989. Dreher began his career as a television critic for the Washington Times, and later worked as chief film critic for the New York Post and editor for the National Review. In 2002, Dreher wrote an essay that explored a subcategory of American conservatism he defined as granola conservatism, whose adherents he described as crunchy cons. He defined these people as traditionalist conservatives who believed in environmental conservation, frugal living, and the preservation of traditional family values, while also expressing skepticism towards aspects of free market capitalism. He portrayed crunchy cons as being generally religious, typically traditionalist Roman Catholics, conservative Protestants, or Eastern Orthodox. 4 years later, Dreher published a book expanding on the themes of this manifesto, Crunchy Cons: How Birkenstock Burkeans, Gun-Loving Organic Gardeners, Evangelical Free-Range Farmers, Hip Homeschooling Mamas, Right-Wing Nature Lovers, and their diverse tribe of countercultural conservatives plan to save America, or at least the Republican Party. From 2006, Dreher maintained a BeliefNet blog entitled Crunchy Con. The blog was renamed Rod Dreher in 2010, with a shift in focus from political to cultural topics. During this time, Dreher worked as an editorial writer and columnist for the Dallas Morning News, which he left in late 2009 to become the publication's director for the John Templeton Foundation. On August 20, 2011, Dreher announced on Twitter that he was leaving the Templeton Foundation in order to return to full-time writing. In 2013, Dreher published a book titled The Little Way of Ruthie Lemming, about his childhood in Louisiana and his sister's battle with cancer. In 2015, Dreher published How Dante Can Save Your Life, a memoir about how reading Dante's Divine Comedy helped him after his sister's death. Dreher has maintained a blog at the American Conservative, where he is now senior editor, since 2008. In 2017, the blog received on average more than 1 million page views per month. Dreher has written extensively about what he calls the Benedict Option, the idea that Christians who want to preserve their faith should segregate themselves to some degree from post-Obergefell society, which he sees as drifting ever further away from traditional Christian values, particularly those regarding sex, marriage, and gender. Dreher suggests that Christians should endeavor to form intentional communities, such as Trinity Presbyterian Church in Charlottesville, the Broderhof, or the School for Conversion. The phrase Benedict Option was inspired by Alasdair MacIntyre's 1981 book After Virtue, and refers to the 6th century monk Benedict of Nursia. The publication of Dreher's book The Benedict Option in 2017 was widely noted in both the secular and religious press, and earned Dreher profiles in the Washington Post and the New Yorker. The Benedict Option was widely reviewed, and received responses ranging from the laudatory to the highly critical. David Brooks of the New York Times described it as the most discussed and most important religious book of the decade, while also expressing concern that by retreating to neat homogeneous monocultures, most separatists will end up fostering narrowness, prejudice, and moral arrogance. Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, wrote that the prominence the book gives to same-sex relations, as opposed to poverty, racism, and war, reinforces the common perception that the only ethical issues that interest traditional Christians are those involving sexual matters. Nonetheless, Williams suggested that the book is worth reading because it poses some helpfully tough questions to a socially liberal majority, as well as to believers of a more traditional color. Russell Moore, the president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, described Dreher's book as brilliant, prophetic, and wise, while Alan Levinovitz, a religious scholar at James Madison University, described it as spiritual pornography, the soul of which is not love of God, it is bitter loathing of those who do not share it. The Benedict Option, as a strategy for mission and renewal, has inspired wide-ranging debate in the Christian community, particularly that of the United States. Various conferences and symposia have been held to discuss the idea, and it has provoked exchanges between multiple Christian theologians and commentators. The Reformed philosophical theologian James K. A. Smith, for instance, has written a number of critical responses to the idea, including one in which he argues that the world Dreher laments the loss of tends to be white. And what seems to be lost is a certain default power and privilege. Dreher has responded at length to these charges on his blog, suggesting that Smith engages in motivated reasoning. The Catholic writer Elizabeth Brunig has argued that Dreher's strategy of withdrawing from conventional politics is difficult to parse with Christ's command that we love our neighbors, while the Christian literary scholar Alan Jacobs has responded to these and other criticisms of the Benedict Option in a range of publications. The writer Lee Libresco has published a guide to the practical aspects of building Ben-Op communities. Dreher holds to what he describes as biblical Christian teaching on sexuality and gender, including on the sinfulness of same-sex sexual relations and the naturalness of male-female difference. While some writers have praised Dreher's insights into the fundamental nature of the social changes caused by the sexual revolution, others have argued that Dreher has not sufficiently grappled with the problem of how conservative Christians should live alongside those whose lifestyles they disapprove of, and have criticized the language Dreher has used to describe gay people. Dreher has published numerous articles expressing alarm at the growing visibility of transgender people in American society, which he sees as part of a technology-driven revolution in our view of personhood. He has been described in The Guardian as a man who appears to view fomenting transgender panic more as a vocation than a job. In September 2018, Dreher was criticized for suggesting that Brett Kavanaugh should not be disqualified from sitting on the Supreme Court even if he had been guilty of attempted rape as a teenager, while having previously suggested, in a blog post entitled Tips for Not Getting Shot by Cops, that the police killing of the teenager Michael Brown was justified, in part because Brown was a lawbreaker who hung out with lawbreakers. Dreher went on to state, "It doesn't mean that there aren't big problems with policing in Ferguson." Dreher is a critic of large-scale immigration to the United States and Europe. He has defended the concept of Western civilization and condemned identity politics associated with race. He has been involved in multiple controversies relating to his writings on race and immigration. In 2001, Dreher published an article mocking the funeral celebrations of the African-American singer Aaliyah, and subsequently reported having received threatening phone calls from people with black accents. Dreher later expressed regret for his comments on the funeral. Subsequent to the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally of August 2017, Dreher was criticized for arguing that left-wing identity politics had some of the demons of white nationalism, and for suggesting an equivalence between left-wing identity politics and white supremacism. In June 2018, Dreher attracted controversy for comparing African immigration to Europe to a barbarian invasion. Also in June 2018, Dreher was criticized for devoting a blog post to reproducing a letter from a reader complaining that white liberals want to give away their own country to non-whites, and warning of an imminent race war. While not endorsing the reader's comments, Dreher described them as intelligent and debatable. In October and November 2018, Dreher was compared to the German Christians of the 1930s for writing with respect to a Central American migrant caravan, "If everybody is your neighbor, then nobody is," and asking, "How far would we go to defend the sovereignty of our nations from invaders who want to cross our borders not with weapons to conquer, but nevertheless to settle here?" Subsequent to the Christchurch mosque shootings of March 2019, Dreher strongly condemned the shooter's actions and aspects of his ideology, but also commented that the shooter had legitimate, realistic concerns about declining numbers of ethnic Europeans in Western countries. As a result of these comments, multiple scholars criticized the University of Wollongong's Ramsey Center for Western Civilization for inviting Dreher as a speaker. Dreher has said that his concerns about immigration stem from sympathy for the less well-off, whom he argues are most negatively affected and by a desire to preserve Western cultural traditions. In January 2018, Dreher attracted widespread criticism for his qualified defense of Donald Trump's comments regarding shithole countries. He defended the content of the comments while criticizing their vulgarity, and in particular, for his suggestion that readers would object to Section 8 housing being built in their neighborhoods because you don't want the destructive culture of the poor imported into your neighborhood. In response to those remarks, Sarah Jones of the New Republic described Dreher as having a race problem. Her article also referred to Dreher's comments on Jean Raspail's 1973 novel Camp of the Saints, which has been described as racist by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Dreher has strongly criticized the novel's use of derogatory language to describe non-Westerners and called the book bad, both aesthetically and morally. However, Dreher has also referred to the valuable and prophetic lessons that can be drawn from the work, including from Raspail's argument, which Dreher presents as potentially correct, that the only way to defend Western civilization from these invaders, non-Western immigrants, is to be willing to shed their blood. He has also drawn parallels between the migrant crisis described in the book and contemporary immigration to Europe and the United States. Dreher replied to Sarah Jones by calling her a social justice warrior and propagandist. Dreher's comments on Section 8 housing were defended by the columnist Damon Linker, who wrote, "Every time a wealthy liberal enclave takes a NIMBY position on affordable housing, it shows Dreher has a point about the need for greater honesty on these issues." Dreher has been a consistent critic of the role of Islam in international affairs, but has shifted in his view of the efficacy of foreign military interventions. Subsequent to the September 11 attacks, Dreher published numerous articles that were critical of Islam, including one in which he praised the Italian anti-Islamic writer Oriana Fallaci's book, The Rage and the Pride, as containing much truth to shock awake a noble civilization hypnotized by multiculturalist mumbo-jumbo. He also noted that the book contained a few ugly parts. Fallaci's book has been described as exhibiting extremely blatant racism by the Canadian scholar Shireen Razak. In 2002, Dreher described the assassinated Dutch anti-Islamic politician Pim Fortuyn as a martyr in the war on political correctness. Dreher supported the Iraq War in 2003, but later came to believe that the invasion was a mistake. He now supports a non-interventionist foreign policy. He was critical of U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to order missile strikes in Syria in April 2017. Dreher has expressed support for various conservative and nationalist governments and parties in Europe. He has written supportively of the government of Viktor Orban in Hungary, and has praised the French Front National politician Marine Le Pen. He has written that although Francisco Franco and his regime were not without sin, he is glad that Franco won the Spanish Civil War. In 2020, Dreher was criticized for attending a conference of nationalist politicians and thinkers in Rome that included Orban, Marine Le Pen, and Giorgia Meloni. Dreher has been associated with a recent political movement that has been alternatively labeled postliberalism, anti-liberalism, national conservatism, or the new nationalism. The movement has been defined in connection with a manifesto titled Against the Dead Consensus, published in First Things in March 2019, which Dreher was a signatory to, and which argues that the pre-Trump conservative consensus failed to retard, much less reverse, the eclipse of permanent truths, family stability, and communal solidarity, and too often bowed to a poisonous and censorious multiculturalism. The manifesto argues for a conservatism of national, communal, and familial solidarity. Critics of the movement have compared its proponents to the intellectual defenders of fascism in the 1930s, while those sympathetic to the movement have argued that there is nothing shameful about love of one's own, the impulse that links individual self-regard and love of family to affection for one's own neighborhood, town, or city, state, and political community as a whole, the nation. On November 1, 2020, Dreher recommended that unsafe state readers of his blog vote for Donald Trump, while noting that he planned to vote for the American Solidarity Party because his state is already safely in Trump's hands. In October 2020, Dreher published a tweet describing the American Solidarity Party as a party I actually believe in. He also later appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe and said that he is a supporter of the American Solidarity Party, and on the same day, published an article endorsing Brian Carroll of the American Solidarity Party. In 2008, 2012, and 2016, Dreher declined to endorse a candidate for president. In the early 2010s, Dreher involved himself in a controversy surrounding Metropolitan Jonah, then serving as the primate of the Orthodox Church in America, OCA, who had encountered resistance in his attempts to involve the OCA more heavily in political issues, such as abortion and gay marriage. Dreher started an anonymous website called OCA Truth, which published alleged private information about an opponent in the controversy. Dreher's connection with the website was exposed when emails connected to the website were leaked. Dreher later described his involvement in the affair as foolish. In May 2017, Dreher published, without context, remarks of Professor Tommy Curry of Texas A&M University, quoting a single sentence from the remarks misleadingly to suggest that Curry had incited violence against white people. Curry was subsequently subjected to a wave of racist abuse and intimidation. Dreher said that he did not seek comment from Curry prior to publishing his blog post, and Curry received the support of his faculty colleagues and university president. In response to the controversy, the Purdue University philosopher Leonard Harris described Dreher as a white nationalist. Dreher rejects this label and has defended his role in the controversy. In January 2020, Dreher was named in a lawsuit brought by the parents of Kayla Kinney, a 15-year-old girl whose private Instagram images he posted to his blog allegedly without parental permission, and against whom he made allegations of sexual harassment, based on anonymous sources, that are denied by the girl and her family. The lawsuit accuses Dreher of defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and invasion of privacy. Dreher has attracted frequent satirical coverage on the political and humor podcast Chapo Trap House. The podcast's hosts have mocked what they see as Dreher's tendency to associate phenomena with which he disagrees, such as the breakdown of family life, transgenderism, the increasing availability of pornography, and immigration from Latin America, with demonic forces. Dreher has been married, since 1997, to Julie Harris Dreher, and is the father of 3 children. He lives in East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana. Raised a Methodist, he converted to Roman Catholicism in 1993, and subsequently wrote widely in the Catholic press, covering the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal, starting in 2001, led him to question his Catholicism, and on October 12, 2006, he announced his conversion to Eastern Orthodoxy. At the time, Dreher had argued that the scandal was not so much a pedophile problem, but that the sexual abuse of minors is facilitated by a secret, powerful network of gay priests, known as the Lavender Mafia. Dreher, Rod, 2006. Crunchy Cons, How Birkenstocked Burkeans, Gun-loving organic gardeners, evangelical free-range farmers, hip homeschooling mamas, right-wing nature lovers, and their diverse tribe of countercultural conservatives plan to save America, or at least the Republican Party. New York, Crown Forum. ISBN 9781400050642. 2013. The Little Way of Ruthie Lemming, A Southern Girl, A Small Town, and the Secret of a Good Life. New York, Grand Central Publishing. ISBN 9781455521913. 2015. How Dante Can Save Your Life, The Life-Changing Wisdom of History's Greatest Poem. New York, Reagan Arts. ISBN 9781941393321. 2017. The Benedict Option, A Strategy for Christians in a Post-Christian Nation. New York, Sentinel. ISBN 9780735213319. 2020. Life Not by Lies, A Manual for Christian Dissidents. New York, Sentinel. ISBN 9780593087398. Dreher, Rod, April 22, 2002. The Gay Question, Amid the Catholic Church's Current Scandals, An Unignorable Issue. National Review. September 30, 2002. Crunchy Cons, Picking Up Organic Vegetables in Your National Review Tote Bag. National Review. June 10, 2010. Orthodoxy in Me. Journey to Orthodoxy. June 26, 2015. Orthodox Christians must now learn to live as exiles in our own country. Time Magazine.